Welcome to my third video about cello vibrato. In this video, I'm going to talk about some of the common problems that I see students struggling with when they're first learning to vibrate. So we're going to talk about slipping end pins, drifting fingers, pain in the fingers, fingers that splay out in weird directions, and then problems with specific fingers. These are certainly not all of the problems that you're going to encounter when you're learning to vibrate, but there's some of the main ones that most people have at least one or two of these, and they're not too difficult to fix. There's another bigger problem, which I call the electric shock vibrato, and we're not going to get into that in this video because I'm going to make a whole video to address that one in the near future. So when students are first learning vibrato, I've noticed that they often suddenly start slipping. Their end pins are slipping where that never happened before. I think the main reason this happens is that there's some side-to-side motion happening in the hand. When you get good at vibrating, you can really stay in line with your string and you have kind of minimal back and forth vibrations. But when you're first learning, it's hard to coordinate that, and you're likely to have a little bit of shaking this way, back and forth. It's possible that you have a little bit too much motion in your shoulder or your neck, and it's shaking the cello more than necessary. A lot of times, this sort of sorts itself out in time when you really practice. In the meantime, my answer is get a good cello anchor, something that will hold your cello up really securely. If you're using that little black rubber thing on the end of your end pin, that's really not sufficient. Or if you're using one of those black donuts with the metal cup, those, in my opinion, have never worked well. And I would just get rid of that and find something nice and secure, like a strap that goes on your chair. And after all, as you get to be a more advanced cellist and you're vibrating, shifting, playing in higher positions, playing with a bigger sound, it's going to put more demands on your end pin anyway, and you're going to really want to try to have something more secure. Another problem I see students having at first with vibrato is drifting finger, and it usually is drifting in the direction of going sharp. They just sort of wander down like this. My first instincts as a teacher might be to say you need a little bit more weight on that finger to try to secure it in one place, but I don't think that's really the issue. In fact, if I'm putting my finger down extremely lightly, I'm staying in one place. And I think the main issue is you're not balancing the energy you put in the downstroke with the energy you put in the upstroke. And of course, gravity is also pulling your hand, so you need to balance that out. And one exercise you could do is intentionally, with a kind of a slow vibrato, try to drift the other direction, maybe going in both directions, and then end up in one place. And if you can get the energy balanced with the up and the downstroke, I think you'll find that you'll be able to stay in one place without putting excess weight on your finger. Now, if you're trying to solve this problem by clamping down, especially if you're clamping with your thumb, you definitely want to try not to do that and try to find a different way to keep yourself in one place. A lot of times when students are first learning to vibrate, they'll complain to me that the ends of their fingers really hurt and it's causing pain. So one answer to that is that you do need to build up some endurance in your fingers, build up a little bit more padding in the ends of your fingers. But the other thing that I think happens if you're trying to follow your teacher's instructions and really play on the ends of your fingers, you might be getting so far over towards the nail that you get to that place where there's not a lot of padding between the skin and the bone, and it is going to be a little bit painful there. And if you just get a little bit more into the center of the end of your finger, that's probably going to be more comfortable, and you're probably going to get a better vibrato anyway because you get a little bit more flesh there. The main thing is we don't want to get so far over that the finger ends up flattening out like this. So experiment with what part of the finger you put on the string if you're having pain, and part of it really may be just building up some endurance, but try those things out. When students first learn to vibrate, I often see their nice hand position turn into something really weird that looks like some kind of strange sea creature with fingers sprawled out or curled in weird positions. A lot of this is because before you've been vibrating, you may have been playing with what we call a blocked hand, all the fingers down at the same time. And now with vibrato, you've got to play one finger at a time. Now I addressed this in my pre-vibrato exercises video, so you might want to check that out. But just really quickly, I'll say I would practice doing what I call hovering fingers without vibrato, just playing, trying to keep the fingers nice and relaxed, just right above the string until you build up the strength and the coordination to keep the hand relaxed and in a good position so that you can add vibrato to that without causing tension in your hand and kind of weird hand shapes. The last thing let's talk about is problems with specific fingers. It's usually the fourth finger that students struggle with the most. And if you look at your hand, you see a variety pack of different sizes, shapes, and strengths of fingers. And it kind of is obvious that this little finger is going to be the weakest. It's the shortest. So not for everybody, but for most people, it's the most difficult one to vibrate with. So one solution that you may have already heard when you're vibrating on your fourth finger is to put your third finger down next to it to give it a little more support. That can often be really helpful. The other thing is not really just a matter of strength, but there's also the matter of balance. And that's why fourth finger is usually the most difficult. First finger is probably the second most difficult. And it's because on the outside of the hands, balancing the vibrato and the vibrations is a little more difficult. And 2 and 3 being in the middle of the hand, they're also stronger fingers, but they're also in the middle of the hand where they balance a little bit better. So one thing you might try is the placement of the thumb. Experiment with the placement of your thumb. You might try putting your thumb more behind your finger. Let's say it's your fourth finger. You might find it works better if the thumb is sort of opposite that finger. You also can experiment with having the thumb actually down in one place, obviously not really squeezing, but just giving a little support, or completely off the string. So all of those different combinations are things that may help. Since everybody's hand is really different, it'll be a different solution for every person. So you got to experiment a little bit, find out what works for you to try to make the vibrato work on every finger. Well, this is certainly not every problem that you're going to have with vibrato, but these are some of the main ones that I see. And if you are struggling with something that I didn't talk about today, send me a comment. And if enough of you comment on it, maybe I'll make a video about that. In the meantime, good luck developing your beautiful cello vibrato.